Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Oxygen for the Soul. This week's Perashat is Perashat Ki Tetze. And this week's Perashat was sponsored Le'iloi Nishmat Hershel Matis ben Yehuda ben Moshe Meir. He should have his Neshama should have an Aliyah, Shlema. Should be proud of all the great work that his daughter does in the world. She is a Bad Chesed. I'm confident that he is smiling in heaven. Okay, so Parsha itself is a profound one and one that definitely fits the bill for this week, as we are a few weeks away, 18 days away from Rosh Hashanah. Parsha begins with Ki Tetze milchama al ovyecha, when you go out into war against your enemy. Udatno Hashem Elokecha biyadcha v'shavit b'shivyo, and God's going to give you your enemy in your hands, and you're going to go ahead and have the ability of taking your captor into captivity and do your thing with them. Now, what is this pasuk talking about? Let's break it down. You're going to have a Shabbat meal. You're going to have your family around. You're going to want to ask. You want to say Divrei Torah. This is your Divrei Torah. Pasuk says Ki Tetze milchama. It says it in the singular. Ki Tetze, when you, the individual, will go out milchama to war. Al ovyecha, in the plural, your enemies. Unatno, in the singular, Hashem Elokecha biyadecha, God will give him this person in your hand, in the singular, v'shivyo, and you will capture his captivity. You will take them into captivity. You will win. What are we talking about over here? Now, this question is important to ask because if you remember last week's parasha, we remember that last week's parasha there is a whole section which deals with going out to war. And we know there's several types of people who did not have to go to war. Someone who was married, someone who was married, didn't have children, someone who built a house, someone who planted a vineyard, and lastly, someone who was afraid. Okay, now Rashi tells us in Perashat Shoftim that if someone was afraid, that means that not just the fear of war, that's not what his fear was. The person's fear was tethered to his fear of sin, and that the retribution and punishment would mean that he die at war. So in order to avoid the fear of being punished from his sin before the war, he would recluse himself and leave the battlefield and go back home to repent. These are the people that went to war. The people that went to war were people that were married, people that had some years experience, and people that were righteous, good people. This person is going to go to war, and God will give this enemy into this person's hands. Well, we should expect that to happen, right? You're a good person, all good. This is clearly talking about war on the battlefield, and the answer is not so clear. Because if this was Moses' command to the people, he should have said everything in the plural, which is why our rabbis interpret this verse as meaning something much more profound. It speaks about, in this verse, a foe, an enemy that you are very familiar with, someone that you know. Why? Why is the Torah assuming we're going to go to war? Like, why not just have like a peace-loving religion that just doesn't deal with war? Let's just love everybody. Well, we know that doesn't work. But Ki Tetze, when you will go out, because you will go out to war against your enemies. Who are these enemies? And God will give you into your hand. We are talking about your greatest foe. You know who your greatest foe is? That's right. I know you're thinking of it. Your greatest enemy is yourself. Oh, why can't you do X, Y, and Z? Because of really you, no one else. If you're blaming someone else, if you are finding a way to go ahead and point fingers on other people that, oh, it's their fault that I can't do X, Y, and Z, you're mistaken. It's really you. You're the problem. The real enemy at bay, that we have to keep at bay every single moment, is ourselves. And it has to do with the following. Do you want to be the best version of yourself, or do you want to live a life of superficiality? Are you ready to live a life of meaning and depth? Are you willing to fight for meaning and depth? Are you willing to go ahead and stand up and hold the banner of meaning and depth, which means using your time wisely? Or do you give in? Now, this is a little confusing. It was Sigmund Freud that taught us that the id, the ego, and the superego make up the different levels of consciousness. Now, the id is the lowest part of your consciousness, the animalistic part of who you are. The ego, higher level of consciousness, the superego is like your moral consciousness. Okay? When we are talking about you going into the battlefield, it's really not you in its totality, right? Totally, in the total form of what you are is just the total sum of your choices. You are the choices you make. And therefore, if you're making positive choices, you're becoming a better person. You're making poor choices, you're becoming a less of a person. So the real battle is against this thing we call the Yetzer Hara. Okay? No, we do not believe in devils. We do not believe in negative forces that exist in the universe that are trying to destroy you. We believe that everything is working in tandem, serving the Almighty, okay? Serving God. Well, why are these things there in the morning? I wake up in the morning and I don't want to get out of bed. I'm like, just sleep more. You need the rest. You're a busy man. You need to strengthen yourself. Salichot is at 5. If I have to get to Salichot at Safra, I have to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning to get on a 5:36 train so I can make it here on time to be able to pray Salichot with my brothers at the synagogue, right? I have every excuse not to be here. But thank God, I am blessed with the ability of being able to get up, because I think every single morning, if I sleep, am I choosing to be a lower version of myself or a better version of myself? Am I fighting to express greatness, or am I allowing myself to slip into the lowest parts of who I am? And the month of Elul specifically is a time where we are fighting for our ability to connect to the Almighty, or to connect to the deeper, most profound version of ourselves. That is what this time is about. You want to go to battle? Know that when you battle against this inclination that wants you to destroy yourself, that wants you to express the lowest parts of you, the weakest parts of who you are, when you go to battle with that force, God will deliver that enemy into your hands. You will succeed. You will win. You are guaranteed success. But if you don't have clarity, if you don't know what it means to go to war, which means preparing yourselves, then there's no battle plan to win. You're going to lose, my friends. To go to war means I have a strategy for winning. I have a winning strategy for achieving greatness and success in all my unique endeavors. And if I don't have that there, then I am bound to fail. But if you want a life of meaning and success, you got to dream. You have to have a vision as to where you want to go, what you want to accomplish. Ki tetze lemilchama, you go out to war. Aliyah, who's that constant enemy? That's your Yetzer Hara, the force that tells you to do bad. Why is it called Ra? Not because it's fighting against God, because when you choose to agree to it, it becomes the Yetzer that's Ra. When you choose to overcome it, that becomes the Yetzer Tov. The choice is who you are, not the inclination. The feelings, the emotions do not define you. That's coming from outside of you. What you are is your choice. Giving in to your desire is what makes you you, not the desire itself. That's a very difficult concept for most people to understand. Think about it. Let me know what you think. Pasuk continues, Verita shivya eshet yafat to'ar. You're going to go out in your captivity. You're going to find this gorgeous, woman. V'chashakta ba, and you're going to have a desire for her. V'kachta l'cha l'ish, you're going to want to marry her. Okay, that's the biblical way of saying you want to be intimate with her. So you see this gorgeous woman, you're on the battlefield, and we just said a moment ago that the people that are on the battlefield are these very righteous, pious men who really spend time developing themselves and clarifying who they want to be with a real plan of achieving greatness in their lives. How are these righteous people so easily been distracted by the looks of a woman? To the point where, look what the Torah suggests. The Torah suggests that if you want to marry this person, okay, vevete el b'toch beitcha, bring her into your home, v'gilcha et rosha, v'asta tziparnea, let her, let's shave her head, okay, you're going to bring her to your house, she's going to shave your head, and she's going to grow out her nails, v'sira et simlat shivya, she's going to wear the clothes of a mourner, she should stay in your house, ubachta et avia v'etima, yerachim, for 30 days she's got to cry in your house. You're going to have a bald woman with long fingernails, wearing sackcloth, crying in your house for 30 days. Let's see what she looks like. Vaya im lo chafatzta ba. If you don't want to be with her at that point, v'shalachta lenafsha u'machar lom tikrena b'kesev lo titamer batachat asher anita. Right, you can't go ahead and sell her or anything like that. You can't benefit from her, but you got to get rid of her. You can't stay with her. Now the Torah starts with that, meaning it obviously does not want you to have a relationship with some woman who is, not Jewish, who's not part of your faith, not part of your spiritual program. Obviously, the whole purpose of this, the Torah telling us to degrade her physically, is because it understands that way too often, men especially, and although women are not absolved from this, we think with our eyes. And therefore, we get excited by the things that we see. Okay, and therefore the Torah is saying, let's take away what we call infatuation, the eye candy for a minute, and let's see if you still want to be there. If you still want to be there at the end of this, okay, you can't sell her, you can't benefit from this, you can let her go free, but what are you going to do if you want to marry her? Okay, you're going to marry her. This is how you marry her. You're going to marry her. Torah tells us then that Ki ish ben sor moreh. If a man has a child called ben sor moreh, very controversial topic over here. So you have over here the Eshet Yafat To'ar, a woman of beauty that is taken captive. You want to marry her? Fine. You then have the Torah telling us about this thing called Ben Sora Moreh. Why? Not an accident. Ben Sora Moreh, the wayward son, is there to teach you that if you marry a Eshet Yafat To'ar, you marry this woman, okay, where you cannot control your desires, you cannot control yourself, you're going to have a child who can't control himself. You'll have a kid who will disrespect you and dishonor you. What is the Ben Sor Moreh? It says like this: Ki ish Ben Sor Moreh, enenu shomea b'kol aviv u'b'kol imo. Here's someone who does not listen to the voice of his father and the voice of his mother. V'yisru oto v'lo yishma aleihem. And then they discipline him, and he doesn't take to them. He just ignores what they have to say. Okay, they're going to take him. V'tafsuhu. They're going to take this kid. Bo aviv imo. Mother and father, they're going to take him out to the city elders, to the gate of that city. They're going to tell the city, this our son is a wayward son. He's a rebel. Okay, he is a glutton and a drunkard. Okay, they do this. Right? What happens? Urgumuhu kol anshe iro ba'avanim v'met. The city people will take stones and stone this kid to death. Now, this is insane, Rabbi. Come on, you believe in a religion that talks about capital punishment for minors? Like, what is this? This Ben Sor Moreh can't be talking about a full adult. So who is he? What's going on here? How do we wrap our minds around this? Number one, Gemara tells us very clearly that the Ben Sor Moreh case is a case that cannot never happen. Almost impossible to happen. Okay, as a matter of fact, there's no recorded case ever happening, ever. And this is more of a scare tactic to the children and to the parents, that if you don't have control over your emotions and your desires, you will have destructive kids. Let's go back again. Pasuk says, Ki ish ben sorer morer, you're going to have a wayward son. Enenu shomea b'kol aviv u'b'kol imo. It's a kid who does not listen to the sound, the voice of his father and mother. But there's another way of understanding this verse. There's a much more, I'd say, harsher way of understanding this verse. Ready? Pasuk says, "Hanenu shomea b'kol aviv u'b'kol imo." This kid never heard the voice of his father and his mother. You know why your kid is the wayward, rebellious son? Is because you didn't have a relationship with him. When was the last time you spoke to your kids? When was the last time you spent time really understanding who your kids are, what they want, what they don't want? You want a relation with your kid, you want them to listen, you want them to be in a place where they could take your advice. How are you investing in building that relationship, my friends? Are you playing games with them on Shabbat? Are you taking them out and having some dad-son time or father-daughter time? What are you doing to build that connection? Because if you do nothing, you will have a child that can say, I never heard the voice of my father or my mother. They never said boo to me. They didn't talk to me. Right? Of course that kid's going to go off and do whatever he wants. They're talking about a kid right now who's 13 years old, between 13 years old and 3 months old. Okay, meaning 13 plus 3 months. That's it. Because beyond that, you can't take them out. It's a very short age. At the age of 13 for a boy, 12 for a girl, that's when we believe a young male, female become adults. So there's a short window of time where this kid for 13 years did not hear the parent's voice, and now you want to come in and tell him what to do? Who do you think you are? Because he became an adult, now you're going to boss him around? No. When your kids are young, those of you that have children or don't have children yet, okay, if you ever watch me with my kids, you'll notice two things. One is that when my kids are with me, I give them 100% of my focus and attention. Number two is that when I speak to my kids, I treat them like adults. I do not speak to them in baby language. I speak to my kids with adults, full sentences, big words. I try my best to push them and stretch them so that they could go ahead and hear an adult and have a conversation with them in a very profound kind of way. We have to invest in the next generation. If we don't, you'll have a wayward son the Torah speaks about, because you haven't created the proper boundaries necessary to live a life of holiness, my friends. And I want to end with this last idea over here. Okay, Pasuk tells us that if you're going to build a house, okay, you have to build a fence around it. Okay, ubana beit chadash, right? And you're gonna have to go ahead and put a fence around the roof. One second, let me just find the pasuk itself. Ki tivne bait chadash va'asit ma'akeh legagcha. Okay, you're going to build a new house. You got to build a fence around your roof. V'lo tasim damim bebeitcha ki yipol hanofel mimenu. Don't place blood in your house, because someone will fall and die from your roof. Well, what is he talking about? Back then you had flat roofs. Today, this is actually halacha applies today. If you have a flat roof where people could walk on in your house, you have a mitzvah to fence it off. As a matter of fact, you'll see some weird places in and around New York where people build fences around their house. It's not for beauty, it's because they're fulfilling the mitzvah of this pasuk, this verse, which says, Ki tivne bait chadash, vasit maka legagcha. You got to build a fence for your roof. Now, I'm going to take this metaphorically. Obviously, this is the literal explanation is that you have a house, build a fence. But there's something more here. You see, you build a house, a fence, to protect something, to create boundaries. What is the house that you occupy? Where is your house? Your house is your mind. What are you doing to fence off your mind? How are you protecting what you think? How are you protecting what you believe in? This is a very important question. You think that you can go ahead and experience anything and be unfazed by it? You think you can watch anything and listen to anything and think that that won't impact you? You're wrong. It will impact you. The Torah is telling you that in the same way, you don't expect someone to jump off your roof, but at the very least, if you have a roof, make sure to create some kind of boundary and fence to protect those people that may not be aware where they're standing and they may have forgotten, take a step back and fall. The same way that we got to protect our home with a fence, we got to protect on our roof, the top, right? We got to protect our heads. Got to build a fence around our heads. And I want to end with the following. This idea is profound. We talk about holiness. There are 4 times in the Perashat where Moshe says, "Kedoshim tiyu," be holy. Right? Be holy does not mean growing long side locks and a long beard or dressing in potato sacks and where no one could recognize you. That's not what holiness is in Judaism. Holiness in Judaism is the desire to want to connect to the Almighty, using the boundaries, the borders that He has set for us. I had a guy, this is a true story, okay, who 2 weeks ago I spoke to him about keeping kosher. He decides he's going to keep kosher. Okay, he wants to keep kosher. He texts me every week. It's been 1 week, it's 2 weeks. 2 weeks keeping kosher. He comes to me today. This happened a few hours ago. Listen to the story, you're going to love it. He says, Rabbi, I've got to tell you something crazy. I had a friend, and I went to the U.S. Open, and I watched the game, and they wanted to go to a restaurant beforehand, not kosher. He's like, but I decided to keep kosher. And, they're sitting down. I order water. I ordered tea. They brought out with lemon. I didn't want the lemon. I just got some water at the end, apologized. And everyone's ordering, the best thing on the menu. These are all Jews who want to keep kosher but are not keeping kosher. It's a non-kosher restaurant, so they're ordering what we all order when we used to try to keep kosher, sketch our kosherness. So we'll order the fish. What's the best fish you got on the menu? So everyone orders the sea bass because that's what the waitress recommends. And this guy is with these 3 other people. He says, no, thank you. I'm not. I keep kosher. I can't eat here. Pulls out a little can of tuna, okay, and eats this can of tuna while these guys are scarfing down their sea bass. The waitress looks at him and says, "Oh, what are you doing?" He's like, "I keep kosher." He's like, "Oh, my grandfather used to keep kosher." Okay, great. After they all eat the meal, like, "Oh, the sea bass was amazing. It's really good." So the waitress says, "By the way, this is our hottest item. The way in which this chef prepares the sea bass is like he takes off the skin and slides a piece of bacon underneath the skin of the fish to give it all that amazing flavor. Isn't that amazing? That's his secret." And he's here sitting there thinking like, oh my gosh, like I would have never ordered it anyone there would never have ordered it if they knew there was bacon on it, right? Because we don't eat bacon. The fish is a fish, but the bacon, who puts bacon in fish? But this guy was protected. He created a fence for himself that no matter where he goes, he's going to keep his kosher because he understands that kashrut is important. My friends, do whatever you can to find something over the next 18 days that you're going to strengthen. Kashrut, beracha. Don't allow, next year to be a repeat of this year. You want the year to be different. You want to change your luck. You want to change your mazal. You want things to be different in your home. You got to make a change within yourselves. create the boundaries, the borders. When you are at the chuppah and the husband says to the wife, Harei at mekudeshet li b'tabat zo, will you be consecrated to me with this ring, right? According to the laws of Moses in Israel, what you're saying at that moment is that I am to you and to you alone. I am committing to you and nobody else. Physically, emotionally, I am yours 100%. And the other saying the same thing by accepting that ring. That level of commitment is the same kind of commitment we need to be striving towards within our Judaism and our relation with God. You want a connection, you want to understand, you want to build. What are you doing to take a step forward to connect? You want to overcome your Yetzer Hara? Know that when you do, God will hand your enemies into your hands. But if you don't have a strategy to accomplish that, you don't create the boundaries, the borders, you allow yourself to be defined by your emotions, you will end up marrying someone that you will regret. You'll have children that you don't love. They'll reject you because you never learned to create the boundaries necessary to live a life of meaning. Wishing you an amazing week. Shabbat Shalom Evarach. May you be blessed with the clarity necessary to make the best decisions, to recognize the boundaries are not holding you back from achieving happiness and success, but if anything, is the road to achieving happiness and success. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you so much for listening.